Hello, it's early February and it's about 40 degrees outside in the morning. I just checked on my thermometer that lives inside my greenhouse and it is 50 degrees inside there. This shows me humidity and stuff. So that means it's time to plant things. Here in Western Oregon, we begin our seed planting time in the beginning of February, and that's when the first inklings of spring begin to happen and the birds come back and it's beginning to warm up, crocuses flower, things of that nature. So having a greenhouse or a sunny window where you start seed, you can begin to plant seeds. So today I'm going to talk about what can you plant in early February, which really is you're setting yourself up for success for your spring garden. So before I got into what we're actually going to plant, you want good potting soil. And I've got another video where I teach you how to make your own potting soil based out of compost. And the white things you see in there are crushed eggshells. So it's just compost, sand, eggshells, and a little bit of kelp. Here's a tray I have filled, ready to plant. There's another video where I compare the various methods of planting. A couple other tools, I already talked about my thermometer, and this is useful if you're planting in the ground. This is a soil thermometer, and you can see it's a little sturdier, so you're not using the kind you would use for home health. And a lot of seeds require a certain minimum temperature to germinate. Definitely the heat-loving crops like tomatoes and such, we're not ready to plant those yet. And so I'm planting cool season vegetables. And a lot of these you can also grow as fall crops. But we're here in February, so we're going to look at the cool season crops. While I'm on the topic of temperature, I just wanted to give mention to heat mats. This guy is all rolled up, but this is an electric heat mat you plug in, and it raises the temperature. You have your trays on top of it about 15 degrees. So I'll definitely be using those when we begin planting tomatoes and peppers and eggplants a little bit later. I'm going to wait till March 1st to plant all those because those need warmth to germinate. Things like kale and lettuce, you don't need heat to do that, so you don't have to worry about it. You may want to start it in your house or a greenhouse. I have a propagation greenhouse or a cold frame. There's a variety of techniques. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about what we can plant. And the thing I'm always most excited to plant is peas, snap peas. You can plant them outside this time of year if you get a nice break in the weather. However, I find that the birds, whether it's robins or jays or a whole myriad of them, love to snip off the shoots and eat them. So if you are going to plant them in the ground outside, you're going to want to cover them with either a floating row cover, or I've even seen some people will take hardware cloth and bend it in a little 90-degree for a tunnel. Or you could start them inside in plug trays and then transplant them out so that you have nice things, or do both, so if birds are eating it, you can fill in the gaps with your ones that you've established inside. Another easy one to grow that normally you're planting outside is radishes. So along with radishes, you could also be doing turnips, beets, and carrots. Same goes for birds eating them outside, because in the early spring like this, it's not really spring, but early in the season, birds are going to want to eat a lot of your crops. So unless you're protecting it, then they're going to be out there at first light snipping off your little carrot seedlings. Lettuce is another crop. This is the time. I like starting lettuce in trays like this. So when I'm transplanting it in about 6 to 8 weeks, I have nice plants. And when you're planting in trays, and I mentioned this in other videos, I always put at least 2 seeds per cell so that when I thin down to 1 per cell, when they're big enough to pull out one, I want all my trays to be full of seedlings. Some people may be in a frugal mindset and just plant 1 seed per cell, but if the germination rate is only 85% or something, you're going to have a bunch of empty space. So another crop that I plant this time of year is onions. This particular variety is Cipolla di Borchetta. It's a Cipollini onion. I grow these in open wood trays, and I have got another video about that. But onions and leeks you start now. And this is really important because onions are photosensitive, so they respond to day length. If you wait too long to seed your onions, like let's say April 1st, they won't be able to size up enough to give you good bulbs, and they'll bulb when they're really small. So starting them now, letting them get big, about half the diameter of a pencil before you plant outside, which for me is about April 1st. So another crop I'm planting this time of year, I'm starting inside, is spinach. And I'll grow it in trays like this and then transplant outside. And then all your brassicas. I've got an assortment here that I'm going to be starting right now. So that would include kale, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, collards. Spring here is not the time that you grow Brussels sprouts. Those are grown as a fall crop. But you could also do kohlrabi if that's your jam. So those all respond really well to starting in trays, letting them get to be nice big transplants with multiple true leaves before you plant outside into the big wide world. Other things that you could be planting this time of year that are also brassicas include Chinese cabbage, both the open-headed pak choi type or a heading Napa type cabbage, the light green ones that look like a rugby ball. Also arugula and various mustards. Here I just for my home garden use, I have a mesclun mix that includes a wide variety of spicy and mild mustards like tatsoi and mizuna, purple osaka, just to have those greens. And just to remind you why I tend to opt for transplants is, and I can do all my soil preparation, let the first flush of weeds come up, and either hoe or till those in. And then I've got these nice healthy plants that I'm putting in. So I have a jump start on the weeds, and I'm using my controlled environment of a greenhouse, or if you're using lights inside or a sunny window, to grow your plants in the relative safety of that environment. That said, I have definitely had little birds or snails or slugs sneak into my greenhouse and eat stuff. So you just need to monitor. And as a reminder, the old saying that the best fertilizer is the gardener's shadow. And that means your presence and your attention. So here, early February, it's an exciting time. I want to encourage us to plant what's appropriate and not jump the gun. I used to, when I was younger, plant my tomatoes now, but then I'd have these huge transplants that I was having to up pot because it wasn't warm enough outside to plant outside. So I've learned things like tomatoes and peppers, I wait and plant them like March 1st using heat and still at my controlled environment. As a general rule of thumb, in permaculture we say you go from patterns to details. What we want with our seeds is, if you're imagining an XY graph, when we plant it, we want a nice steady trajectory of growth. And what can happen sometimes if you plant things too early, that it's not time, like let's say cucumbers or summer squash. We don't get frost-free weather until Memorial Day weekend. So that's a long time from now. That's 10 weeks from now. So if I plant those and you're imagining my XY graph, maybe they grow quickly because I'm using heat and I'm growing it inside, and then maybe they fill out their pot and they get stunted and they're waiting for you to plant it outside. They might even languish and the leaves begin to turn yellow. Then you have to fertilize it or repot them, and then you put them outside. But if they've already been stunted, sometimes they'll just sit there and hang out. Whereas if you do everything at the right timing, you get that nice steady trajectory of growth. And so I've mentioned this in my potting soil video, but every cubic inch of soil, which is, let's say about that much, is enough with a compost-based potting soil, enough fertility for about 1 month of growth. So these cells have 2 cubic inches. So I have 2 months of growth, let's say 8 weeks, which is exactly about the time that you'd want a broccoli, a cabbage, a lettuce, a cauliflower to be growing inside before you put it outside. So figuring out the right cell size is important depending on the crop you want to grow. If you're in a more northern environment, you might want something bigger. And I use soil blocks, as you can see in my other video that we'll link here, because they have a little more capacity. But I like that general rule of thumb. You get about 1 month of fertility per cubic inch of your growth medium. And, that said, remember to use your garden calendar, your garden journal, and keep your dates straight so you kind of have an idea, and then you begin to learn the rhythms of your own climate, your own soil mix, the pests and challenges that you might have, like I mentioned birds earlier, and everything's gonna be a little different year to year. I really notice in cold winter years, we've had a warm winter this particular year, but that the nature and the birds in particular are really hungry. So anything you plant outside, even if though we might look to the greater whole of nature as being abundant, they're going to look at your pea seedlings or your beet seedlings as a delicacy and just go for it. So you have to learn your local environment. And for here, we're at 42 degrees north latitude. February 1st, this early February time, is the time to get the ball rolling on a bunch of these early crops. And then you're going to be setting yourself up for an abundant, successful growing season by keeping that nice steady rhythm of planting, transplanting in accordance with the way the season evolves and the days lengthen. So hopefully you got a few things that are helpful that you'll have in your gardener's tool belt, and you'll be more successful than you were last year and be growing more food, flowers, and medicine for you and your family. So thank you.